you heard of TrueNorth.bet?
Sure have.
Okay, well, you have because you're listening right now. Built to be the credible, dependable, safe gaming experience that Canadians are looking for, TrueNorth.bet focuses exclusively on Canada and Canadian players. TrueNorth.bet also takes pride in having the best customer service on the market. They're professional, efficient, and built for you. You should do this. Visit TrueNorth.bet/STPN. Check it out. When you read the report, it's 20 pages long. The last 3 or 4 pages are just a bibliography, so it's actually not that long of a read. And a lot of it is stuff that you know. They go into why are we here? Jenner and Block, what's that? Who's Kyle Beach? Who's Dr. Shaw? Who are Kyle Beach's agents? Because there's 2 agents mentioned here, right?
Yeah.
And I'll read this. The core disputes, at least as far as contact with the NHLPA is concerned, are the sharply conflicting accounts provided by Fehr and Gurney about their conversation with each other and Dr. Shaw and Beach regarding theirs. So there's 2 conflicts. Don Fehr and Mr. Gurney, who is Kyle Beach's agent, and then there's Dr. Shaw and Kyle Beach. And in both cases, both Kyle Beach and his agent said, we spoke to the NHLPA, we expected to hear back, and we never heard anything again, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the NHLPA's position has always been, can't recall the conversation, and not totally sure if this is one of our things that we should have been handling anyway. Now, it's very clear that the player perspective on this in the current NHL climate is that the NHLPA absolutely needs to respond to things like this because, human beings, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you're an NHL player, I want you to think about it like this. I want you to think about it like you're an NHL player. So last week, you find out, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, you find out that the agents meeting and the NHLPA meeting happens, and you find out that the head of your players' association, through your agent, would not stick around to answer questions. First off, even if I don't read a book, if I don't give a shit about labor relations, if I don't give a shit about any of this stuff, if I am a part of a union and I find out the union head is running away from my agent's questions to them, that's a red flag for me, right? That's a big deal.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
My hope is it's a red flag and not, you know what, the playoffs are around the corner, I don't need this shit. Because that attitude is what got us here in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Right. So here's what we have here. Regarding Gurney and Fehr, Gurney told us in substance that he called Fehr, and then Gurney, again, Kyle Beach agent at the time, called Fehr in late December 2010 after Beach told him that he had heard that Brad Aldridge, had been hired as a video coach by USA Hockey in connection with a tournament that was held in late December, early January 2011. Gurney said that, although he had never met Fehr, he called him because he believed that as recently appointed NHLPA executive director, which he still retains, Fehr would likely know the appropriate person at USA Hockey to contact to warn them about Aldridge's behavior. Gurney told us, this is the investigators, told us that he recalled describing Aldridge as a pedophile or a sexual predator in his call with Fehr, but did not provide Fehr with any details of what allegedly transpired between Aldridge and Beach. Fehr denied having any recollection of the call, a position that he has consistently maintained both in public statements and of interviews with him. In our interviews with Fehr, who is an experienced lawyer, they made note of that, repeatedly, he made the same point that if Gurney had either described Aldridge as a pedophile or a sexual predator or requested him to contact USA Hockey, he would have remembered it. Fehr is adamant that had the incident been so reported to him, he could not and would not have taken or agreed to take any further action without being provided with more details regarding the alleged incident, including whether Beach had reported or was prepared to report the incident. So that's interesting because if you're a victim of a crime like this, a lot of times people are like, you got to say something. You got to say something. And victims oftentimes don't want to speak up. And there's a myriad of reasons why. Embarrassment being chief among them, right? The same reason why people, like, how did Kyle Beach is 210 pounds, Brad Aldridge is 5'6", how could this happen? This happens. We know that this happens. So Fehr says, listen, I don't remember this phone call. But even if I did remember this phone call, I still wouldn't have been able to do anything about it because he hadn't reported anything. So I'm exonerated 2 times. That's what it looks like to me. After an exhaustive review of the entirety of Fehr's emails during the same time period failed to reveal any reference to his call with Gurney, much less any discussion of the alleged incident between Beach and Aldrich, a significant omission, and I've underlined this in my notes. This is important. A significant omission given Fehr's documented practice of immediately following up with other matters of much less significance. So to put that into layman's terms, Donald Fehr is a lawyer. When a lawyer takes a phone call, they have got to register what was discussed on that phone call. Because what can happen is somebody could say, hey, you had a phone call in December or January of 2011 or 2012, and it was 14 minutes long, which, by the way, we'll get to. What were the contents of that phone call? And they went through every email Donald Fehr has ever sent at the NHL as the NHL executive head, right? They went through tens of thousands of emails, 10 years of emails. They went through all of them to find one reference, and they did not find a single shred of evidence that he mentioned it. But what they did find was a propensity to be extraordinarily detailed. To if it's the tiniest little thing, Don Fehr writes it down, follows up on it.
So their position is, well, he keeps very detailed notes, and because he did not have any notes on this, it didn't happen.
That's not necessary. That's Fehr's position. That's not the
report's
That's
position.
Not the report's position. And let me, Jesse, I know you want to jump into it.
No, go ahead.
Let me just follow that up with this. Copies of the NHLPA's phone records and some of Fehr's personal cell phone records from the time in question were found in storage, and upon review revealed a 14-minute call from Fehr to Resnick within hours of the email being sent. Fehr and Resnick were separately shown all the records, and neither had any recollection of the call.
Resnick is another agent.
Another agent involved.
Yes. Yes.
Ultimately, this is where the kind of report sort of. I didn't want to get too in depth because I think you should read it, but obviously I wanted you to come away with sort of the idea of what's happening here. Ultimately, the failure to act on Beach's reports stems from a failure of communication. All parties involved managed to walk away from these interactions under some misapprehension. Gurney and Beach walked away, agent and player walked away from their respective conversations, believing that someone, possibly Fehr or somebody else at the NHLPA or Dr. Shaw, had agreed to take responsibility for contacting USA Hockey. Dr. Shaw thought that the others, either the union or Beach's agent, would address Beach's concerns with USA Hockey, and that he was bound to keep what Beach told him confidential. Resnick believed he was sharing a concern about a coach who was odd, bullying, and inappropriate, but not a sexual abuser, and Fehr and Gurney's differing accounts of how the call went are difficult to reconcile because they are fundamentally incompatible. However, given Fehr's years of experience and training as a lawyer, his failure to recall the conversation or take any further action strongly suggests that, at a minimum, he did not leave the call with the understanding that he had agreed, either personally or on behalf of the NHLPA, to contact USA Hockey. And in a lawyer's sense, you have to look at it like we can't make any assumptions here. So at very least, he walked away not understanding the situation.
So as a dumb layman who's not a lawyer, can you explain to my little brain how to interpret that? Because I'm interpreting that as Donald Fehr essentially has immunity here because of his years of experience.
Oh yeah,
as a lawyer.
he's fine. So here it is. You know, usually
What a fucking disgrace.
Usually your best defense is, I don't know. That's
Just say
usually
you
the
don't
best.
know.
Well, that's what he did say. He's repeated that every time.
So if you're a practicing lawyer, all you have to do is say, I don't know, and you can get away with fucking anything?
No, but I think the idea is, so what they're saying is, listen, Donald Fehr, trained lawyer,
yeah.
labor relations, MLBPA, head of the NHLPA. Okay, this guy headed up both of those unions. This guy knows exactly what it is to be a lawyer in this union. You gotta keep track of your calls. You gotta keep all these records. You gotta make sure that everything's professional above board. But in this one instance, he has this 14-minute phone call. He can't recollect. And somebody's saying, this is what I told Don Fehr. And Don Fehr's like, I have no recollection of that.
I'd be curious to know if it was common practice for him to keep records of conversations pertaining to players who are not in the NHLPA, which Kyle Beach was not.
Well, they're saying that every call. The assumption that I got, what I inferred from the document, is that everything he did, he documented, which is what you should do.
Yeah, pizza
And
guy.
so their
parents,
conclusion They said, our conclusion is further supported by the absence of any evidence that Fehr either memorialized the conversation or discussed it with anyone else affiliated with the NHLPA, including his brother Stephen, who is outside counsel to the NHLPA. This departure is completely at odds with Fehr's documented practice of routinely and promptly tasking others to follow up on matters of much less significance. So they're saying this 14-minute phone call that he can't recall is completely out of character for how he normally conducts business based on the tens of thousands of emails they went through.
According to who?
According to the third-party investigator.
You just quoted his brother?
No, I didn't quote his brother. Well, they talked to his brother, who is an outside counsel. Mm-hmm. And they asked him, like, did Don Fehr talk to you about this? And he said no. Which, I mean...
Oh, great.
Good.
Thanks.
So,
Big help.
A lot of, I think in the report, it also states that, like, nobody remembers hearing about this. Nobody can remember hearing about this, which means he probably didn't talk to anyone about it if he was told or whatever. At very least here, I do think it's odd. Like, if you do everything the same way professionally, there's a system in place, right? And then just this one time you didn't, it's suspicious.
For me, the conclusion of the report is that it's very hard to believe Donald Fehr's recollection of the situation. Like, that's all. I came to the conclusion that most likely his tale of the story is untrue in my eyes, and that he has all of the records and the resources to back up his claim that I don't remember, because he's meticulous in these things and he's organized his life in a way that if he wants to erase this and pretend it didn't happen or not have memory of it, he can do that.